You have spent so much time focusing on your tax reform plan. The details are still coming out here, but it's clear that wealthy Americans are going to get a pretty hefty chunk of the benefits out of this bill. Are you open to shifting that through the course of negotiations? Are you open to giving more of that to the middle class?
Yeah, that's the entire discussion we're having about a fourth bracket on high income earning individuals so that they don't get a big rate cut, that goes to middle class taxpayers. That is something we're doing and looking at. The question is just how to set the numbers. We're waiting to see what the budget resolution looks like to see how those numbers work. So that is the key. And the president made it really clear to us. He basically said to us, I don't want wealthy income earners to get a big tax rate cut. We want that to go to middle income earners, and we agree with that. On the flip side, businesses, and remember, people own businesses. It's really important that we drop tax rates on businesses because businesses in America are being taxed at much, much higher tax rates compared to their foreign competitors, and we're losing in foreign competition as a result of it.
But you're assuming quite a bit of growth if you're making that assumption that those business tax cuts are going to help the middle class. That's new for you. You've always been previously a deficit.
No, you're missing
guy.
me. I'm an old Jack Kemp supply sider, actually. So I'm a big believer in broadening the base and lowering the rates, and that will give us faster economic growth. Absolutely, no two ways about it. If you ask me that all tax cuts pay for themselves, no, that's not the case. Some do. It basically depends on how high the tax is, what's international competition look like, and what kind of tax are you talking about. But we know when we lower tax rates, that helps economic growth, and especially in the international area, where businesses are taxed on average at 22.5%, and we are taxing American businesses, big and small, between 35 and 40%.
No, they pay lower than that, effectively, however.
Oh, a lot of businesses pay that effective top statutory. I was just with UPS, big, huge company, right? The brown trucks. Their effective tax rate is 34%. They compete against DHL, 24%. I was talking to Harley Davidson just the other day, a big Milwaukee company. Their effective tax rate's up in the mid-30s. They're competing against companies taxed at like 20%. So we're really putting our firms at a competitive disadvantage. But when you take loopholes away and lower rates, everybody pays the same. We think that's fair.
You said last week in a speech, if we squander this opportunity, it will never come again. Some will say this is, you're defining life's work. If you can't pass tax reform, how long do you see yourself staying as Speaker of the House?
I took this job to do big policy things. I didn't take this job to be a caretaker. I didn't take this job to be a beer and be here and have some big title. I took this job to do things. I took this job to improve people's lives, to pass the principles and the policies that I've spent my adult life working on. And so, yeah, this is one of those big issues. It's not just me, it's us, we, here in Congress. We ran on doing this. The president ran on doing this. So we've got a pretty big commitment to keep. And the great thing about keeping this commitment is everybody benefits. That's why, among other reasons, I took this job as Speaker of the House.
Do you risk losing the majority if you can't do this? What's your message?
I just don't get into the political speculation of if we do this, if we don't do this. Look, I think we need to keep our word.
But isn't that the underlying message to your members that you've been sending? Hey, you might have a small problem here, but if you don't do this big thing, there's going to be major consequences.
We want to show that there's a reason for us being in the majority. And the reason for us being in the majority is we're going to help grow the economy. We're going to help give people tax breaks. We're going to help simplify the tax system. We're going to grow the economy. If we don't do that, then that doesn't look very good. And more importantly, we ran on doing this. We ran House, Senate, President Trump on overhauling the tax code and cutting taxes for middle-class taxpayers. And so we got to make good on that commitment.
The president has regularly engaged in disputes with various members, Bob Corker, the most recent Ben Sass, over the First Amendment. Is that helpful to your agenda?
It's what he does. We've kind of learned to live with it. He and I have had, well, not on this particular issue, but we've had our engagements in the past too. I don't think what I'm trying to get our members to do is just focus on doing our jobs. We're here elected to represent our constituents, to advance our principles, pass solutions. That's what we're focused on. And I try to get members just not to get distracted by these things.
Did you ever imagine that Washington would be the way that it is now under President Trump?
I think the country's pretty darn polarized. I think one of the reasons why it's polarized is because the economy has been pretty darn flat for a long time, and there's a lot of anxiety in America. And this is, again, one of the reasons why I'm so focused on this agenda, because I think it will give relief to this anxiety, because it will give people more confidence in their future.
Is the president helping?
Yeah,
He's
he's crisscrossing the country helping us with tax reform. Absolutely, he's helping us with tax reform. Do I wish he would tweet less? Of course I do. He knows that, but I don't think that's something out of my control, and I don't think that's something that's going to change. But is he going around and helping us sell tax reform? Is he connecting with people? Did this president, as a Republican, win Wisconsin for the first time since '84 in Pennsylvania?
Did he do that by uniting or dividing?
You take a look at where I come from. He united people. He brought people into our party, voting for a Republican president, voting for a hotly contested U.S. Senate race. And these are Democrats that felt like they were overshadowed. We used to call them Reagan Democrats. Now they're Trump Democrats. So yeah, he did actually grow and bring to the party, and he put together a pretty darn impressive vote coalition. So yeah, I think he did it, unifying that front.
Since the president was elected, you have said you make it known to him you don't want him to tweet, but you've also, you've defended his actions by saying he's new at this, he'll get used to it. You didn't go after him by name after Charlottesville. But during the campaign, you said, in the wake of the Access Hollywood tape that was released, that you would never defend Donald Trump, not now and in the future. And I've heard from some critics of you who they are Republicans, and they don't necessarily recognize the Republican Party under Trump, and they're disappointed in you.
Well, that's fine. They can be that however they want. I think the best thing I can do as Speaker of the House is help us pass an agenda that improves people's lives. We have an agenda that we all agree on. We have unified government. I think it's really important to make this unified government work. Imagine if we decided just to have some internal food fight and get nothing done for the country. How does that help people get a job? How does that help people get more take-home pay? How does that help relieve the insecurity that people have in this country who are living paycheck to paycheck? It doesn't. So if we want to play some DC game of fighting each other and get nothing done, maybe that would satisfy a few people. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm elected to defend the Constitution, to represent people in Wisconsin, to help run Congress, to improve people's lives. And you do that by getting things done. And in this unified government we have a tremendous opportunity to get big, good things done. That, to me, is the most important thing I can contribute to. You
mentioned an internal food fight and your majority, which is a nice segue into my question about Steve Bannon, who is, quite frankly, picking a food fight with a lot of your incumbents, both in the Senate and in the House. Are you afraid of what Steve Bannon might do to your majority?
No, I'm not afraid of it. I think we're going to be fine if we just do our work and get our jobs done and pass our policies. I think it's...
Is he helping the Republican Party?
I don't think it's helpful to have internal fights. I don't think it's helpful to be going after fellow Republicans. I think what's most helpful is if we all unify around our common goals, principles, and purposes and get an agenda passed. So yeah, I don't think having these internecine fights are helpful, but at the same time, I don't think it's really going to deter us from doing what we said we would do and doing what we're working on right now.
Are the messages that Steve Bannon is sending to the Republican base helpful for the country?
To be honest with you, I'm not paying that close attention to it. I'm a little busy with a day job, so I don't even really know what you mean when you say the messages. I'm making sure that we get our budget passed.
He works with
sure
Breitbart. They've written a lot of stories, going after you.
I have three stories in my life: death, taxes, and attacks from Breitbart. So I'm just so used to that stuff that, to be honest with you, in this job, you just don't really spend time thinking about or worrying about things outside of your control like that.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.